everyone, this is me, it's Clayton. I just got back from seeing Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And even though I've never read the book, I still really love this movie. It has a couple of flaws here and there regarding its pacing and the amount of subplots that it has. But you know what? It's JK Rowling. It has her signature style of writing. It has her signature charm. It has tons of amazing visual effects and memorable characters. And it's just a lot of fun. But let me get to the story. The story takes place in 1926 when a magic zoologist named Newt Scamander, played by Eddie Redmayne, stops by New York after a global expedition to document a bunch of fantastical creatures, which he keeps in his suitcase. Unfortunately, while he's in New York, he comes across a nomad, American for Muggle, named Jacob, who ends up with the suitcase in his hands, which causes a bit of an incident while in New York. It's up to Eddie to get the suitcase back and to get all the beasts that have escaped from it, with the help of Jacob and a young woman named Tina Goldstein, as well as her sister, Queenie Goldstein. All the while, several events transpire that could cause a huge problem in between the Nomad's world and the world of magic, which is basically a secret society of witches and wizards. But that's all I can say without spoiling anything. What did I like about this movie? Well, since the writing was done by JK Rowling, it's got a lot of charm and wit behind it. There's plenty of exposition right at the beginning, absolutely, but there's plenty of light comedy throughout that keeps the audience interested, especially from Jacob's character. Jacob Kowalski basically fulfills the comic relief role, and in my opinion, he's actually pretty funny, even though a lot of his comedy comes through his facial expressions and his reactions to all the weird things going on around him. Essentially, that makes him sort of an audience surrogate, because the other characters are sort of eccentric, especially Newt Scamander, played by Eddie Redmayne. This might make up for his terrible performance in Jupiter Ascending, considering that Newt Scamander is a pretty eccentric and pretty weird character, and Eddie Redmayne pulls off his weirdness especially well, making him a pretty charming lead. Tina Goldstein and Queenie Goldstein are both played by two great actresses as well, and they do balance off the comedy and the strange eccentricities of both Newt Scamander and Jacob Kowalski pretty well. There are a ton of other characters to go over, but one of the problems I have with this movie is the fact that there are a few too many subplots. What I mean is, while the main plot's pretty well paced and handled throughout, the film has a bunch of other things going on. There's political intrigue, there's stuff about an abused child, there's a dark wizard introduced at the beginning who doesn't show up till the very end, and a bunch of stuff like that. There's tons upon tons of characters and subplots that feel like they're putting in too much to build up other sequels. Because from what I can tell, the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is another series. Like, it's a prequel series before Harry Potter. So it feels like they put in a few too many subplots which will be resolved in other sequels, if this film gets a sequel, which I hope it does. It's a similar problem that I had with Amazing Spider-Man 2. But it doesn't detract from the movie. It doesn't feel like a 2-hour-long trailer. It just feels like some parts could have been cut out or trimmed. It makes the pace feel a tiny bit slow, and since the film is over 2 hours long, it can get a bit boring every now and then. But thankfully, whenever I did start to get bored, something funny happened with Jacob Kowalski, or something interesting happened with all of the magic and fantastical beasts. Speaking of which, let's talk about the visual effects, because the visuals, as expected for a film directed by David Yates, and of course with one of JK Rowling's films, the visual effects are truly magical, in lack of a better word. I absolutely love the way all the fantastical beasts are designed. They're all very unique looking. The visual effects for the magic are also, they're fast-paced, they're fun, they make for some pretty interesting action scenes. And of course, I absolutely love the way that J.K. Rowling does her world building. Because this film really does take advantage of its 1920s setting. The costume designs, the cars, the buildings, the way people talk, the way people act, it feels like she really encapsulated the era, in a similar fashion to how she encapsulated the era of Harry Potter. So yeah. Overall, I did really like this film, even though the slow pacing and the amount of subplots did get to me from now and then. But I do hope this movie does get a sequel, considering that there are a lot of hanging threads at the end of the film, despite the fact that it does wrap everything up in a nice and neat way, and that it feels, even though it feels like a lot of the characters get the resolutions they deserve. So, I give Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them an 8 out of 10, and if you're a fan of the Harry Potter series, I definitely recommend checking it out. See you later.